Welcome to Season 3 of Creatively Speaking. I'm your host, Leanna Weller-Smith, the founder of Weller-Smith Design. In this episode of Beyond the Binding, I sit down with chef and author of the Salt and Vanilla Cookbook, Judd Servidio. Judd is a seasoned culinary artist celebrated for his innovative approach to traditional dishes and his dedication to sourcing the finest ingredients. With a background steeped in the culinary traditions of Italy and an adventurous spirit that knows no bounds, Chef Judd creates unforgettable dining experiences that leave guests craving for more. Noteworthy clients have included the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, Pierce Brosnan, and Matthew and Camilla McConaughey. Additionally, Judd has been the private chef for Jean-Paul and Eloise DeJoria, co-founder of Paul Mitchell and the Patron Tequila, for over 14 years. I had not met Judd previously to recording our interview. However, he and I are in a Facebook group called How to Be a Cookbook Author, which is run by Sally Eckes, a cookbook agent. Check out her episode in Season 2. In there, he has talked about his self-published cookbook, and of course, I was intrigued. There are a lot of moving parts to self-publishing a cookbook, so I was thoroughly impressed with all that he had accomplished, so I had to have him on the show. In this interview, he shares his DIY process from attempting to go at it solo to then collaborating with industry professionals and friends. We talk about his photos, editing, design, and the challenges he faced when printing, distributing, and marketing his book. We cover so much in this episode, and I think it will be helpful for those starting their own self-publishing journey. So let's hop in. Hi, Judd. Welcome to Creatively Speaking. I'm super excited to have this conversation with you today.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
So before we get too far into our interview here, I'd love for you just to give everyone a little bit of information about who you are and what you do.
My name is Judd Servidio. I've been a chef now for over 27 years, I would say. I started off, well, if you really want to know the way I started off, was actually my first cooking job was 16 at McDonald's. I didn't last very long. I was more wanting to get more involved with friends rather than work at 16, so I didn't last but a few months. But that was my initial intro to cooking. Other than I took a couple of food courses in high school and in middle school. I'm a little bit of an old school. We had home ec, and we had to take home ec for half the year. So
they should still be taking home ec.
They should. I agree. My boy is going to middle school next year, and I'm like, where's wood shop? Where's home ec?
Yeah, it's hidden. It's hidden, yeah.
I went to culinary school and immediately got a job and just started working in restaurants, hotels, country clubs. I did that for about 9 years. I took a little break from cooking, and I got a desk job for about a year and a half. That was horrible. I hated it. And then got back into, I started my own catering kind of private chef company. Did that for a few years. And then I got hired by my current employee, Jean-Paul and Eloise DeJoria. I've been their chef now I'm in my 15th year with them. So it's been quite a ride for them.
Wow. What a great journey. I mean, I've always been very curious in terms of how someone can become, you're a private chef.
Yeah.
And I've always been very curious about that. And especially recently, even my husband and I have been talking about, just wanting to eat better and having somebody help you at home. So I'll be asking you other questions about that along the way. But I came across you in a Facebook group. It's Sally Eckes. She is a cookbook agent, and her Facebook group is How to Be a Cookbook Author. And in that group, you were in there with me, and I've seen your journey. So here on Creatively Speaking, we have been putting together a couple of different seasons around cookbooks, self-publishing, and since that's what we help people do. And so your story about your cookbook really, really interested me. So that is the main point of our conversation today. But even before we dig in there, I'm curious, throughout your career in the culinary industry, did you always know that you wanted to write a cookbook?
No, I did not. It was something that did pique my interest as I started with the Joria family. Really, what it came down to was I was trying to keep track of what I was making them on a regular basis. So I would take a picture, I would write down the recipes. In the cooking world, in the restaurant industry, we were taught to have a little notebook in the back of our pocket with a little pencil. If you talk to any great chef, they'll say, write everything down, because there's no way that you can remember everything. And so I just started to write things down and record what I was making, what I was doing, because the creative process for me when it comes to food is really what's drove me to keep pushing. And one of the biggest complaints my boss has, John Paul, is that I don't make the same thing twice. And so it's like over 15 years, I've been coming up with new things all the time. And I'm out of ideas at this point. But it was a way really to keep track of it. And so the more I did that, the more I thought, I would really like to venture down the road of doing a cookbook. So that's kind of where that started.
That's fascinating because, I feel like, with the show, The Bear, watching that and seeing like how, just like what you had mentioned, them having that notebook in their pocket, walking around, writing down flavors, talking about like how they can mix elements together. It is like you are like a scientist in some ways. Like I've worked in the food industry not food industry, but I worked at Artisan Books, which they specialize in high-end, beautiful cookbooks. And I used to work at Food and Wine Magazine in a few different aspects. But the last role that I had there, I was in their marketing art department. And it was always very fascinating to me to get to interact with the different chefs, especially we did a lot of the events. So we did all the Best New Chef events, the Aspen events. So all of the different events the marketing department got to do, but we would get to go to these different showcases and taste all their food. And it was just always fascinating how you have to, your palate is so much more defined than someone like mine. So you can mix and match it all together. And so it's so impressive to me. But to hear that you hadn't made the same thing twice, that's really impressive.
Well, I'm not trying to toot my own horn here. I have obviously made the same thing more than once, yes. But sometimes it's been so few and far between. It could be a couple of years since I made it again, or I'll take one aspect of it and I'll rearrange it to a way where he thinks it's brand new, but it's a little bit different, but fairly on the same guideline. But there is still times when I'm still trying to create new things. That's really what keeps me going, because it would be very hard for me to do lasagna on Monday night, cheeseburger on Tuesday night, and just have that week after week after week. And I think anybody would get tired of that. And I feel like, I don't know if I mentioned this in my book or not, but one of the things that I always say is, they're the top 1%, and they can eat at the best restaurants anywhere in the world. And so one of the things that I kind of wanted to do in my mind was try to compete with them to have job security, right? So in my own mind, I'm competing with some of the best restaurants in the world. And sometimes I've actually had guests come over that have said, this is as good as this restaurant, or this is just as good as one of the top restaurants in Paris, or something like that. So, so then you feel like, well, maybe what I'm doing is good.
Oh, absolutely. So how did you get started as a private chef?
I really didn't seek it out at all, to be honest with you. Midway during my career, I was looking to make a little extra money when I was in Dallas, and I would pick up one or two clients on the side. You go and make a couple of meals one afternoon. And so that was my entry level into it, but that was years ago. And I really wasn't seeking it out. I kind of had started my own catering business. I was doing cooking classes, private parties, weddings, and all kinds of those kinds of things. And a friend of mine is an optometrist here in Austin. He had my business cards, and Eloise DeJoria goes to him for her, to get her eyes checked. And she just happened to strike up a conversation with my buddy, who is the optometrist, and said, "Oh, I need this chef." And
what a great referral!
and he's like, "I got the perfect guy for you." He had my business card. He gave it to her, and they called me up, and they tested me out a couple of times, and I didn't even know who I was cooking for, to be honest with you.
Wow.
So John Paul was out of town, and the house manager had called me and they said, my client, they need dinner. And so I did it Wednesday night, and they said, "Well, are you available Thursday night?" And I said, "Sure." I actually had Wednesday, Thursday, Friday available. And then the next day they said, "Oh, and by the way, we're wrapping on a movie that we invested in, and we're having a party for them. Can you cater it for lunch?" And I said, "Sure." And so this is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. By Friday, I'm like, who are these people? This is not
wife. Yeah.
Yeah, this is not normal. Like, they're riding horses and it's a party. And I'm like, this is not your average family. But so that's kind of how I got intertwined with the DeJoria. So for the next few months, when I didn't have catering gigs, then it kind of filled in the gaps. And so it was good for both. But then it was around 2008, the markets and,
oh, yes,
kind of crashing.
Time. Yeah.
And I was engaged and I wanted kind of steady income. I wanted to buy a house. And they said, "Why don't we go full time?" And I said, "Sure." And but I said, I don't want, I said, "What about a contract or anything like that?" He says, "Well, we really don't do contracts." And I said, "Well, I've kind of spent the last few years building up my name around town." And I said, "I don't want a year down the road for you to say, well, you know what, it's not working out." And he said, "Don't worry about it. We've got employees that have been with us for over 20, 25 years. He said, "Don't worry about it." I said, "Okay." And so that was it. And now it's 15 years later.
Wow.
So it's been just an amazing blessing and ride.
So how does that work? Are you there like really every night, or that they're there, or how I'm curious how that works.
I because they travel quite a bit and I needed certain days off. I kind of, in the beginning, it's changed over time. In the beginning, it's, I'll work 6 days because they traveled a lot. And, as long as I get the same day off every week, then I'm good. And they said, that's fine. And then we've kind of renegotiated as time has gone on. Now I work more of a Monday through Friday kind of job. I have the weekends off. So for a chef, that's like unheard of.
Yeah.
So they eat fairly early. And so I'm home at a decent hour. I'm not getting home at 12, 1 in the morning. It could be different with other families, but I'm just speaking from my experience. So we typically spend a lot of time between Austin and LA. Those are probably the two major places that I go, sometimes Colorado. But in Austin, I go in about mid-morning and I'm there until dinner. So maybe I make a late breakfast. Maybe he's got a lunch meeting. Somebody comes over for lunch, or maybe you have people over for dinner. And so that's typically a fairly rough schedule in Austin. LA is a little different. It's kind of the same, maybe early breakfast. Maybe they're there for lunch, maybe they're not. It's just, there's no day the same. So you have to be flexible and kind of, my old blog was called Cook on Your Feet, because you have to be quick on your feet, living this kind of lifestyle where, everything is, quick.
Yeah.
And so anyway.
Yeah. I was reading the stories in the book. Thank you so much for sending it to me because it's gorgeous. And I already have a few things that I want to make. And I will test my kitchen acumen because I need more home ec lessons, to be quite honest. I always tell people that I'm the person that needs to start a food blog around how to end up ordering out every night because
Yeah.
your food is so bad. No, I'm okay. I'm okay. I can't be that harsh to myself, but I'm definitely not as advanced as a lot of my friends.
It
But
just takes a little time and a little love.
yeah, it does. And I have noticed for myself that I do really well with the food I want to make. I like to entertain. So for me, it's like if I'm making for like if I have people coming over, that's what motivates me. I like to like figure out the menu and I always try something new, which is probably not a good idea, but most of the time it turns out really great. So
No, I do. I do the exact same thing. The only difference is sometimes I have a smaller window,
yeah.
and it could be like an A-lister coming to dinner.
Right. A little more pressure. Yeah, but that's what I was getting at, which is in the book. And I was reading some of the stories, and that's what you had said. It was that, you'll look and see what you have, and then you'll figure out what you can make and what else then what you need. But it's being able to, like you said, cook on your feet, which is it happens even in a regular person's life too, is to what's in my pantry and what can I do with that is going to be palatable for the rest of the family.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
inspiration probably comes in a lot of different forms for certain people, right?
Right.
My inspiration would probably come from, again, what do I have on hand, or what's in the garden, or what did I get at the farmer's market? What are the dietary restrictions for somebody that's coming over? So you try to play in all those factors. And then as a chef, we think of colors, we think of plating, we think of how does it all come together? What style of cuisine, are you looking to make, and kind of stay in that realm, but maybe, step out the line a little bit. I try to, if I'm going in an Italian direction, I normally don't add soy sauce, right? I'm not gonna do that. Some people do, and that's great. But I try to stay in the realm of the ingredients that's in that cuisine typically. So all of those factors, I think, play into coming up with a dish or coming up with something interesting. But it also, as I've gotten older, I think when you're young, you try to do everything. And a lot of probably young chefs, they put a lot of stuff on the plate, right? And they add more, keep adding more. And as you get older and you talk to some of the best chefs around the world, it's about actually taking more off and leaving less and concentrating a little bit more. So that's been a challenge as well. And especially if, some private chefs or personal chefs, or maybe even chefs in the restaurant business, a lot of times you might want to order something from Japan, or, have stuff flown in from all over the world. And I could do that. No problem. I have the budget, but I don't do that at all. I really feel like there's enough good things locally, or at least even in local stores, that you can get certain ingredients where I don't need to spend $500 or $1,000 on shipping lobster from wherever. So I just try not to do that.
Yeah. Well, I think the visuals that you were that were coming to mind for me, it does remind me too a lot of the plates that you have in your cookbook, because they have some beautiful color, and like you said, there's less is more. Like the photography is amazing, but at the same time, like, you really are letting the food shine. Like, there's not all this other stuff there that's happening, right. Which is it's stunning, I have to say.
I took 98% of the pictures. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not. That was one of the questions I wanted to ask, because the photos really are beautiful. Did you take classes? Did you just experiment, or how did you?
No, I almost, and again, all of it is almost on an iPhone, to believe it or not.
Wow, yeah.
And
the lighting is great. Like the lighting on all of them is very consistent.
So what I found out is if I'm in Austin, there's one area outside that I can kind of take a picture, and there's kind of one or two places in LA where I can kind of go outside and get natural light. Really, that's all that I've done. There's no lighting, there's no professional. Now there is a couple of shots that I had to redo, or a couple of me that were with a better camera, but it still wasn't like we had a crew and we're doing all that. So these are, I would say 90% of most of the food shots is actually a dinner meal that I made, and I basically took the shot, and that's that's kind of what it is. So I'll serve them, and then maybe I'll make like a hero shot, let's say.
Yeah.
And that's what I do. I just go out and I take it on my phone. So it's probably not industry standard for sure. But again, I tried to do the best I could with what the resources I had. I tried to walk down the line of reaching out to like the Penguin publishing house, and I tried to get somebody's name and contact off of LinkedIn, and I would text them, and I'd try to send them, here's my ideas for my cookbook. But no, it was just crickets everywhere I went. So
did you actually put together like a proposal? Did you connect with someone like an agent at all, or?
I didn't go. I probably need an agent. I need help probably. But,
well, I don't think you need help anymore. It's done. It's
right. Yeah. But I mean, I didn't know quite what to do. Right. And I will say the Facebook group with Sally, if anybody's walking down that road, that path, I would say absolutely join it. There's so many people on there that really have knowledge and really have experience. I would love to be a bigger part of that if possible. But it's really helped, hear some of the things that people run into.
Yeah.
So I wish I would have probably gotten into it a little bit earlier and maybe hedge some of the things that I ran into. But I'm just thankful I got the project done. And be honest with you.
So what started it then? So you talked about earlier that you had been keeping track of the recipes that you were making, taking notes. You knew that you were collecting them all, but when you really decided, okay, I'm going to do this, and like you said, you were reaching out to people, maybe not in the way that would, most of these publishers, they want agents coming in. So, with, presenting to them different prospects. So when did you decide, okay, I'm going for this, and I'm going to figure it out?
Well, again, I kind of talked about it for years as I was to myself. Maybe I mentioned it to a family member or two, or I mentioned it to maybe John Paul and Eloise. This is for my cookbook, or something like that. But I really didn't dive into it. Maybe 5 years ago, I started to kind of dig a little deeper, and again, clueless as to what I was doing. But I had. At some point, I don't even know the exact time, but I would say 5 years ago, roughly, I started looking online, like how can I put together, a book online? And I would start, and then I would stop, and then my computer would crash, and I would lose everything, and I'm like, oh, this is awful. And so that happened like 3 or 4 times. I mean, I'm not even joking. And so you get discouraged, and, but, I'd keep talking about it. But finally, I would say during COVID, I think, or maybe it was a little before COVID, my mom turned 70, and she lives in Houston. I went to Houston, and they had a big kind of a party at a restaurant. And there was a friend of theirs who had self-authored. His was more of a science fiction, novel, but he's written about 6 or 7 books and has them on Amazon. And so I'm talking to him, and he basically said, "Look, Judd, you've got to finish it. You've just got to finish it." And he goes, "The first one is going to be the hardest, but you've got to finish." And that was really that really stuck with me. And as painful as the process was, I just kept, I was like, I've got to do this. I've got to stop talking about it and just finish it. And to get it over the finish line was extremely painful.
How long,
But
how long was your process? Did it take from
I would
20?
say 1 to 2 years,
Okay.
because I mean, so again, I got back to online and I started doing everything. I would lay the book out, I'd put the recipes in, I put the pictures in. And so this is an online, I don't even know the name of it, but it was like create your own cookbook online. Well,
Uh-huh.
you go to print and it was like $130 for a book.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not going to work. So I did a little more digging. Maybe it was on the Facebook group, but I think somebody had said you need to do it in Adobe InDesign.
InDesign.
That's industry standard for layout. Well, I downloaded InDesign and I tried it for like 20 minutes. I was like, there's no way I'm doing this. So I hired two friends of mine, Rennie and Bill Palmer, and she is a graphic designer and he's an editor, and they're married.
Oh, that's
So
great. Wow, what a great couple.
yes, it was great. So I basically handed over, I thought I was about 95% done, and I wasn't. And so I basically gave everything to them. She reworked everything, laid it out, and made it much better. And he went through and edited it. And so that took probably 6 to 8 months.
Yeah.
And then right when you think you're done, we kind of revised the whole thing again.
Oh, wow.
Just because some of the stories or some of the wording. And so it was another, I would say it was probably a year of editing. I don't know if that's in line with most, but we didn't have probably as big a team as others might. So that was really kind of the process.
The editorial piece of it, were they able to help you like with the recipes too?
Yes.
They did they kind of did all the phases. It sounds like they went through like a developmental edit, copy edit, line edit.
Yes.
Reading, all that. Yeah.
Yes. So that was, I think the technical editing was the recipes, because he was probably more of a literature writer and not a cookbook.
Yeah, recipe writer. Yes.
So trying to get the wording and the verbiage is like, I don't understand what's going on in this process. And I'm like, well, it's just straining out pasta, it wasn't quite that bad, but you understand it.
Yeah.
So it was a challenge for him and a challenge for us to get the right verbiage where it makes it clear. Some of the recipes are technical and you're trying to convey without pictures or a video to show exactly what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. Well, I think like the layout, the whole package really, it's really beautiful. And there's a lot of space on the page, which I really love. I think it's 8.5 by 11, I think, right? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a nice amount of white space on each page, which also complements the beautiful photography. So you don't have a recipe that's taking over the page with too much content. But I love the stories that are trickled throughout. Did you have to get any of that approved?
Yes. Originally, so my boss, so I have a lot of pictures with the people that are in the book.
Right.
And so originally, we kind of wanted to put the pictures in. Obviously, you need write-offs or you need signatures off for that. And my boss is like, no, you don't. They're my friends. You'll be fine. I'm like, no, I don't. These people are coming over for dinner. They don't really know they're going to end up in a cookbook. He said, it was kind of a back and forth, but I said, John Paul, it's great. I know name dropping and having big names in the book can help sell books. And he's a salesman at heart. So he's all for it, And I'm like, I don't want to go to court.
Right. They're your friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can survive in court. Me, on the other hand, probably not. So I just said, look, I think we can hint towards some of these people without name dropping. Maybe that would give some excitement to the stories. Let's lose the pictures. We had to rework some of the wording and to try to make it fun and interesting without completely throwing somebody, out to pasture or anything like that. So that's that. So it did need editing. It's a short form of that answer.
Yeah. Yes. I know there's a story about a royal couple, and there's a few other stories in there too, which are pretty exciting. So it makes one dream and visualize about being in the room as well, I think.
Yes. Yeah. And the stress that goes with it.
Exactly.
I to be honest with you, I've been able to cook for a lot of people, and I really haven't been overly starstruck with that many. I really try to keep it professional and not, ooh and ah, and but there is obviously a little stress of like Wolfgang Puck, right? Like what do you cook for him, right? And I decided to go skiing the day that he's coming to to have a meal, or at least snacks, because I didn't know for sure if he was coming or not. I love skiing and all the rest. So, but with the royal couple, it's like, what do you cook them? They've been to a million formal dinners. Do you want it to be ultra? Do I want to take my pride and make them the best meal ever?
Right.
Or do I want to make them comfortable and in kind of a casual environment? And so, again, a younger chef would have probably gone way over the top, tried to do every technique and food that they know how to do. So I did a little research, and one of her favorite dishes is a fish taco. And so I said, I'll make a fish taco. Right. I made the tortillas, and they loved it. And I think it was appreciated a lot, because at the end of the night, you have Harry coming into the kitchen and saying, I just wanted to thank you so much for an amazing meal. And that's
exactly that.
Right.
And it's thoughtful too. Like now I think that's the other piece of it. And I think that's also too what I got from the different stories in the book too, which is there's this thoughtfulness that kind of goes through everything. You're putting a lot of thought into, just like we mentioned earlier, the ingredients, or like what you're picking for each meal, or the different occasions that are coming up. It's very thoughtful, and I think all the pieces too that come together, it emulates that. So once you had the book designed, what was your next step? Did you know that you wanted to have it printed the way that it is now? Did you look at all these different printers? Did you try print on demand? I'm curious, like, how you ended up with what you have now.
So the next step was another nightmare.
It's a big process.
I looked for distribution. I looked for printing in America. So I tried to research every printing company that I could possibly go to. There's not a lot, or
there's that many.
I don't know of them, and if they are, they're the big companies, and if you're not underneath them, they're not going to print your book.
Right.
To kind of go back to the formal, did I did a formal presentation for the book? I tried, but it probably wasn't good enough. I didn't have an agent. I probably didn't go through the right channels, and probably somebody looked at it like, this is kind of a joke, right? So that's probably what happened and why I didn't get many callbacks. But as far as the printing, I looked on print on demand because of a 4-color gloss.
Yeah.
It was $85 a book
for
print on demand. And so I was like, that's just, nobody's going to buy that. I found a company in Chicago, and they are an American company, but they print in China. And so they gave me a quote, and I said, okay. So then I tried to take that quote and shop it around U.S. companies. So one company got, I wouldn't say close, but it got somewhat respectable. Somewhat respectable. I think. So I was looking at, let's say, 4,000 books, right? That's, you got to order a decent amount to even bring it down somewhat.
Cost down.
Right. So they got it down to about $28, $29. That's just cost to print. That wasn't shipping. I'm not even reselling it yet.
Yeah.
And so you're at $30 right off the bat.
Yeah.
And that's just, I'm like, oh man, that's not going to work. Now, I will say their quality was very good. So I was happy with that, but I just couldn't find anybody to get the price point down where I can actually sell it at break even.
Right, exactly.
Money. So I went with a Chicago company that printed in China, and really the only way that I was able to do this was I secured, because it's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. Either, no matter which way you slice this, it's an investment.
Yes, really. I thank John Paul, and really his daughter, Michaeline DeJoria, who's CEO of Paul Mitchell now. Mm-hmm. When I was talking about it, and when I was, let me go back for one second. The one company that I'd tried to negotiate with that was $28 a book or something like that, they actually went ahead and printed me a free copy. So I had it. I had a free copy. And I got to see the quality. And so that allowed me to kind of go around and start doing a little legwork. But now fast forward back to Michaeline. She basically said, look, I'll buy 2,000. I'll buy 2,500 or, whatever it was. And we'll give them all out as Christmas gifts for, the company and things like that. So that order allowed me to basically finish my book, publish it, print it, ship it, and break even, basically.
I saw that. That was one of the things that I think you might have put it in the Facebook group, which it was the box, I think. And it was beautiful. Yeah, and I was like, oh wow, that's amazing. Which not everyone will have that opportunity.
No.
However, at the same time, I think that is something that we always try to tell our clients too, which is to look at who you know and who could possibly do something with the product that you're doing, whether it's somebody that is, if it's a friend of a friend or somebody you know directly, you just never know. And just by talking about it and continue, and you're part of their world too, because you've nourished their family for 15 years. Absolutely. But it's also an opportunity for them to give back to you as well.
Absolutely.
In a different
win-win.
Yeah, it's win-win all around. And what was interesting too is I felt like this was like a perfect gift for people to receive, like from the company. It just felt like it was all part of their brand as well. So it had that elegance to it as well. So
I can't thank Michaeline and John Paul enough for doing that. It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. Yeah, like it is.
It's not like a publishing house is behind you and they're putting forth the money and they're paying you to get the book. That, like, none of that was done. Like, this is all out of pocket, and so it was a lot. But I think, again, securing that amount really allowed me to piggyback on that initial order. And so that's what I did. I basically, they ordered a couple of thousand. I added on to that. Mm-hmm. So let me just give you an example. To order 500 books, it was $20,000.
Yeah.
500 books.
Yeah.
But for me to add on 500 books to the order was like $3,000.
Right.
So I was like, at the last minute, I added another 500 books on because I was like, if I run out, like, there's no way I'm not.
Because then you're starting from the beginning, like your number starts over again. So It's like you have to kind of take your gamble with that first run. You don't know how much you're going to order the next time, like if you're going to have a full order. Right.
Again, the smaller amount, the higher the book price, right?
Yeah.
And so you needed to get to, I would say 1,500 to maybe 1,500 to 2,000 was like the threshold where it really jumped down by half.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe it was at 30 and it went down to 15-ish or something, somewhere around there. And then if you add on to that, then obviously it just brings it down, probably pennies on the dollar or maybe $1 or so. But you needed to kind of get to that threshold to at least bring it down to a respectable price where you can actually, okay, now I got to figure out, okay, where do I put it?
Where do I put them? Yes. Yeah. That is the next. Yeah. I was curious, like during the printing process, was the company that you used, did you get to see proofs? Did you get to see all of that? Or did they just kind of take care of that for you?
So I could have paid another $500. So you upload it online. They kind of give you a visual of that, and they were like, well, if you wanted a physical copy, you'd have to pay another $500. It would take so many weeks, and I was like,
Right.
I said, I've already got a copy from the other printer,
Yeah.
and so I think I should be fine. In hindsight, I should have spent the $500 and double checked it. There was a couple of things that I would have done a little differently that the other company probably did better. And so in hindsight, I would have, you try to save a buck, or you try to,
Right.
you try
You
to.
don't know what else is going to be added on. So it's like you gotta kind of wage your bets here, like as to if I want to be in this for the long haul, can I keep throwing $500 at it?
Well, yeah, you're already spending thousands.
Yes.
Like you're paying these people to edit it. You're paying, websites, and money's flying out the door, and nothing's coming in.
Yeah.
So it's like you got to stop the bleeding somewhere. And I felt like I already had at least a proof copy from the other company. They assured me that it would be just as good, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And so in hindsight, I would have probably spent the $500 just to double check. But I thought this company is probably just as good, so I'm not going to worry about it. So in hindsight, I would have done that. But as far as, okay, now I'm printing. Now, where do I go with it?
Yeah.
So distribution, again, I just researched every mom and pop distribution, every like print to order, like shipping. I couldn't find anybody that would take me because again, you have to do business with.
It's a single book. You're not a publisher. You don't have multiple products coming in.
Yeah.
It's a gamble yes.
Right. Or you're not printing with them.
Right.
If you're not printing with them, you're not, you're on your, it was difficult. But I found one company out of New York, and she sells on Amazon, so I don't have to do that. She distributes, she ships, and stores it. So what I ended up doing was shipping the books in 3 different areas. So
did they coordinate that? The printers?
Yes, they did.
Okay, so because that is a big thing to get it from China to the U.S.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I had 3 different areas it was going to. One pallet was going to the distributor in New York. 2 or 3 pallets were going to Paul Mitchell because they had already bought the books. And then I had another pallet going to Austin, which is where I live, because I just didn't know, there's fees for storing it. Yes. And there was, so a friend of John Paul's, he's got a warehouse here in Austin. He does his own business. He said, you can, actually, I think I had 2 pallets sent here, and I've already gotten rid of 1. So I'm down to 1 pallet.
That's good.
Yeah, I know. But I look at it and I'm like, wow, there's stacks of books. But
they'll find homes.
What's that?
They will find homes.
Please.
Yes, they will.
Help me. But so I had a warehouse here where it's not like I have it in my garage or anything like that. So, and again, those are very minimal fees. You could look into, I tried to look into shipping it to Amazon, having them stored, and have fulfillment through them. And it's expensive. Amazon is expensive.
And it's a complicated process. It's not easy.
Very complicated.
I mean, I know that all the pieces that you just talked about of what you did to get to where you're at, those were all a lot of pieces and complicated. But just Amazon alone is like 10 times more complicated.
And that's why the BCH distribution is who I used in New York. And that's why she deals with them every day. And she's like, I hate them, but unfortunately I have to deal with them. And I started to go down that process. Like, I'll be the seller, fulfill it through Amazon.
Right.
It's so complicated. And if one little thing's off, like they won't accept the packaging, they won't accept the pallet.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
they'll re-sticker it, they'll do this, and then you have to pay for that. It's very confusing. Yeah.
And so I thought, you know what, this lady, maybe her fees are more than some, but in the end, I think it was money worth, well spent for the headache.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe you'll she charges me every month, but I'm not paying all the fees of Amazon.
Right.
I'm not paying, any of that. So
That's great.
yeah.
So how are you getting sales? Like, are you, did you hire a publicist, or are you doing like marketing, or how are you approaching that?
Grinding.
Yeah. Have you thought about like working with a publicist or
I
something?
have. I almost want to do it. I
Almost.
really, no, I mean, I should say, so, marketing and advertising is not my thing. Just like the tech thing is not
Yeah.
my thing. So, again, I'm kind of the blind leading myself here as far as not knowing what to do. I do know how to get out and hustle, a little bit. So I'm okay with that. But, doing it for the last year now, I'm right now, I'm kind of like, I kind of need a break.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it is if you to keep going, and you can't stop. You have a product, you have a book, and just like you said, you have a palette there, and it is a constant.
So I reached out to a couple of chefs. I reached out to people doing cooking classes, stores. If I was going to LA, I'd reach out to a store and said, hey, I'd go around and say, your store looks great. Would you mind selling my cookbook? They're like, sure. So you do a lot of that. And if you're not willing to do that, then I guess, so let me back up for 1 second. The big thing that my distributor also brought to me was they got me in Ingram.
Oh, perfect. Yes.
Ingram is the biggest distribution channel.
Yeah.
And so I only paid $300. So I tried to go to Ingram.
Yeah.
They said,
no, there's a that's kind of like trying to get into Amazon.
Exactly.
Yes.
So it was, not only was it like $100 a book, but again, you'd have to print with them. So, but it sounded like Ingram was somewhere I needed to be, and she had an in to get me in there for $300. Mm-hmm. I was like, that's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So that was huge, because I'm getting orders from bookstores or from somebody, because she can't tell me exactly where they're going.
Yeah.
Because it just shows up as Ingram ordered a case, right? But I don't know where it's going, and so, which stinks, because I would love to reach out to the bookstore and say, I'd love to collaborate. I'll do a book signing, or but I don't know where they're going.
Yeah. I'm curious, like, because she's sending them, right? So she's the one fulfilling it. Yeah. Can she put like a flyer in there that has, like, what I'm trying to say? Like, maybe there's something she can put in the box, like some kind of postcard. Thanks for the order. I'd love to do, book signings or this or that, or come in and like a cooking.
That's a great idea.
And it's just like a little postcard that's easy, like, go to online, whatever, Vistaprint, and just print something and send them to her. And whenever she packages them up,
That's a fantastic idea.
Yeah. Because then
I haven't done that.
Yeah. So there you go. Little tip.
There you go.
Because that is huge to get orders that are coming in. And so that was one of the questions I wanted to ask, was if it's in bookstores. So you don't know exactly what stores it's in, but
there were several I tried to reach out to the main cookbook stores in America, mm-hmm. and just specialize in cookbooks. There's one in New York City, they have my book. There's one in LA, they have my book. There's actually, there might be a couple there. I've reached out to the ones that really have cookbooks. Now, I tried to get into Barnes and Nobles in the stores. Mm-hmm. They sell it online through Ingram.
Right.
But to get it in, and I even went to the stores here in Austin, and I said, look, I'm a local chef. Here's my cookbook. I just published it. I'm already in Ingram. I think you already have it online. Would you consider, bringing it in the store? And the problem is really, I stink at social media. I mean, let's just put it out there.
Right. Having a platform is always going to be.
So I have very little platform, to the big players.
Right.
And so without that, I feel like you struggle a bit trying to, again, it comes down to hustling. Right. How much do you want to hustle? I've gotten on local news, I've gotten on, magazines and articles, and I've done events, in different cities.
And you're doing all that without a publicist. You're doing that all on your own. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all me setting it up, calling them. And again, it's just, how much do you want to keep doing that? Part of the problem is some of that stuff you're doing a lot of work and you might only get a few book sales.
Right.
And so is it you getting your name out there, or is it you trying to get book sales? And a lot of times you might talk to an advertising person or a marketing. They're like, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to get your name out there, or do you want to sell books? And it's like, well, I'd like to do both.
Yeah.
Can I do both?
Yeah.
They're like, yes, that'll be $5,000 a month.
And the other? Yes. Yeah.
And that's the other thing I ran into was, going with different. There was a local printer here in Austin. They go through University of Texas, Longhorns, and they're a big publishing company. It's like they wanted $30,000, and then that didn't include even the advertising. They're like, and advertising's on top of that.
Wow.
I said, you want me to pay like $50,000, just to get the ball rolling with you, and there's no guarantee. Like, yeah. I don't know. I couldn't bring myself to do that.
Well, I noticed that the book has won some design awards, I think, right?
So again, I tried to look online. What are some book awards? What are some book events? Can I go and do them? Can I ship you a book? Can you take a look at it? So there was one in Europe. They invited me over for the awards. It was over in, not Dubai, but I would have gone to Dubai, but it was like, I think it was like in Kuwait or something like that. And I'm like, yeah, well, right now with the war in Israel going on, I was like, I don't know if I need to go over there, but I've entered a few. I would like to enter more. I don't have the list. And again, I do have a full-time job. I have a family, kids. And so it's like,
they're like, hey, Dad, we know you love your book, but
yeah. Well, I mean, I for years, I would be up till midnight, like, typing
in. You can get down the rabbit holes. Like, I have to commend you because it is a lot of work. You did a lot of work to research all these different pieces, and you made it happen, which is a lot of people give up or it ends up in not exactly the way that they want, but you did it. And I think that that's something super huge to be very proud of. And,
thank you so much. I am proud of it. And I couldn't have done it without the help of like some family members, my wife, my mom and her two sisters. They kind of helped edit a little of the stories as well. And so there was a few people that I tried to mention at the back of the book that kind of helped me along the way. But yeah, getting it across that finish line, there was a couple of times where I literally kind of wanted to cry. Yeah. Because I got, you would move 2 steps forward and then you'd move like 4 steps back and you're like, no. So it was.
Do you think you would do it again? Do you think you would do a cookbook number 2?
To be honest with you, I would love to get on board with a publicist or, an agent. And I have enough, I have so much, I guess now they call it content. Mm-hmm. I have so much that I feel like if I had a team around me, I could pump books out like that.
Yeah.
But to do it all on my own again, I mean, I kind of would want to, but it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah. Is there anything, knowing all the things that you did go through, that you would do differently looking back?
I think I wouldn't mind, like I said, it's kind of along the same answer that I just said would be kind of maybe taking a shot to be one of the bigger players, but I know they have teams around them.
Oh, sure. You're right.
That really help them go to fruition.
Mm-hmm. Have you talked with you haven't talked with any publicists, but even since this book, have you sent this to any agents to talk with them or?
No, I think I did reach out to Sally maybe a couple of years ago. And I don't remember the conversation, or I don't remember where it went. I don't even know if the book was even done yet. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I don't remember. So that's really the only person that I might have emailed a couple of others and I got no response. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like everyone's overloaded with projects and they don't, and again, it comes back to your platform. And if you're not a big player, does somebody want to take a chance on you or not? I don't know.
Well, I think that your fortitude and all the things that you've done, I think that is something that should be taken into consideration even when presenting this to someone, because I mean, all the things that you went through to get to this point and all of the the press and different events and things like that you've fostered on your own, it's very impressive. So I think that shows that you're also willing to put in the work, because with a publisher, they're only going to do so much anyway. You're still going to be doing a lot of the same things that you're doing. And even if they have a publicist that helps you and they have the PR department, they have the marketing department, there's still a lot that lands on the author.
I have no problem doing the work.
Yeah.
What I don't have is the context. What I don't have is my foot in the door. And that's where I feel like there could be a big jump if you had that foot in the door.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Maybe it's dreaming, but I have no problem working hard and going for it. I also don't want to be just spinning my wheels either. I would be happy to venture down that road of a publicist, an agent, and see where it can go. But I don't know the relationship structure as far as financial. Is it per diem? Is it, per month? Is it, I don't.
Oh, like with an agent, like to work with an agent. Yeah.
Yeah, most of them are wanting money every month. And if there's nothing coming back, then you're just, again, it's all going out.
For most book agents, like the literary agents, they usually don't get paid unless your book gets picked up. So even if it takes a couple years, unless you're paying them for specific service of like, okay, read, let help me do this with my proposal, or if you're doing it on your own and you're asking for advice, I think you're hiring them as a consultant. But if you're hiring them as your literary agent, I think there are definitely rules around how they get paid, and it's not an ongoing thing. I think it's until you get picked up. So that's at least one piece of it. But they do get royalties if it gets sold,
which is fine.
Which is really fine, I think. Yeah, absolutely.
And what about a publicist?
Oh, well, a publicist is definitely different. So a publicist would definitely, you would hire them for a certain amount of time. They would talk to you through what all the things that they would do. And then, that would be the work that you do with them. So you would pay them whatever it is that you agreed on for the services. And they tell you, each one will, they approach it a little bit differently, but they'll tell you what they include and all of that. And again, there are no promises, but they have the contacts. So they have.
Let me ask you this: what would you recommend in your experience?
Well, I think now, knowing that you have the book, knowing that how much you are willing to do the work, I think a publicist. I think it would be good to have at least a conversation with a publicist to see if you can start to get some wider reach with the book to get it in front of more people. But I also think too, just like we were talking earlier with it, when it comes to platform, I think it also depends on, there's still going to be a platform process here. So it's like whether you have a website that you build out a bit more so that you are providing more recipes that you have. And it's like, and we can talk about that because I took a look at your website. So we'll definitely talk about that.
Sounds
because
great.
There's definitely things that you can do on, even for just recipes online, but then say you start to build that social platform by continually adding recipes, that can help you grow. I do think, I know with some of our past clients, that's what we told them. You have to start doing social media. I know you can even hire someone at a low level that can at least get some of these things out there, so that they're doing most of the work. But
I do it.
Yeah.
But I'm stuck in the algorithm, I think, where I can't break out of it. And again, all my pictures look like in the book, right? So I post it, but it's stuck in this tiny little bubble and I can't break out.
Yeah. There's a whole ecosystem behind all of that, but
I know.
But yeah, I'd love to just even talk about all that with you offline. We'll chat. So
Okay, sounds great.
I think that would be awesome. So if anyone is thinking about self-publishing a book, a cookbook, do you have any advice that you would like to share?
Absolutely. I think if you really want to do it, I think the main thing, what most entrepreneurs or people that are trying to start their own thing is you really don't give up. Don't give up is really key. Get some help from people. You can't do it all yourself, even though I try to do everything myself. I can't. Realize that there's expertise that you really need, but not giving up when the chips are down, when you really feel like you just cannot do it. Maybe you want to take a break, step away from it, come back to it. But if it's really something that you really want to accomplish, I would say go for it. You'll find a way. If you really want to do it, you'll find a way. Whether it's money, whether it's the time, whatever obstacles can come about. But I think if you really want to do it, you'll get it done.
I think that's great advice. Yes. And we help people go through the process. So even if we had met a little bit sooner, we could have helped you get through all those pieces.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who knows? Book number 2. Come on, Leanna.
Oh, exactly.
Come on.
I already know all the, the stylistic requirements here. So it's
I'm waiting for my pitch here. Come on.
You'll have to let everyone know where they can find you so they can see your recipes, they can check out the book, they can buy a couple copies for their family and friends.
Saltandvanilla.com. That's my website. I've got over 400 recipes on there. The book's on there. A couple of other products might be on there. You can look on Amazon. You can buy there. You can do any quick Google, and there's multiple stores. I think barnesandnobles.com and other bookstores around the country have it as well. So there's multiple ways to get your hands on, which you do want to get your hands on.
Yes, there you go. Well, thanks so much, Judd. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Okay, bye.
Bye.